We can have roll call, please.
Representatives, please state your name for the record when I call the taxing district you represent. City of DeKalb,
Bill Nicholas.
DeKalb Community Unit School District 428,
Jamie Craven.
DeKalb County,
Gary Hansen.
DeKalb Park District,
Amy Dahl.
DeKalb Township, Kishwaukee Community College,
Bob Johnson.
Public Member, Kishwaukee Water Reclamation District, DeKalb Public Library, DeKalb Township Road and Bridge District, DeKalb County Forest Preserve. 5 present.
All right, we have a quorum. So let's move to item C. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Joint Review Board meeting from April 26th?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item D, public participation. No public participation today. Moving on to E, presentation of the second quarter fiscal year 2019 TIF financials. Mr. Nicholas?
Thank you. I'm going to yield in a few seconds here to Ray Munch, our Assistant City Manager, who reminded me just in recent days that we had considered this meeting, I believe at one of the last meetings, as potentially the annual meeting when you would see the report for 2018, and in the process of pulling that together, and that just was completed in the last month. Ray and I discovered that the 2017 report, although properly filed with others, was never presented to the JRB. Unless you have a recollection of that. We don't have any
Wasn't here.
written record of it. So we're going to yield to Ray, who's going to walk you through the 17 and 18 annual report. And then, as you know from your first mailing, there are a number of financial reports here and some timesheets and some other things. And if you have any questions, we're more than happy to address those. Ray.
Thank you, Bill. So, as Mr. Nicholas mentioned, we have the annual reports for both fiscal years 2017 and 2018. Interestingly, the FY17 report is actually a compilation of what could be considered 2 city budget years, because if you'll recall, the city switched from a July 1st budget year to a January 1st budget year halfway through 2016. So our 2017 annual TIF report actually encompasses fiscal years 16.5 and 17 for the city. So that report was filed with the State of Illinois Comptroller's Office in June of 2018, post-audit of the city's finances, which is done on an annual basis. But as Mr. Nicholas mentioned, it was never presented to the JRB. So I won't go into a great amount of detail on these reports individually. They are all on the city's website now for full viewing. Some of them are several hundred pages in length when you get into all the attachments of development agreements and the such, but just to take a brief look at the financials, I'll start with the FY17 report for the Central Area TIF. That fund at the beginning of that reporting period had a fund balance of $1,718,962. Total deposits during that reporting period were $359,096, excuse me.
Ray, may I just interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
Just for the members present, just to let you know what's in your, some of you have printed out the mailing from a week ago. This report that Ray is describing is not in that. It is online, and because it runs, in one case, I think 500-600 pages.
Right.
We didn't print it out for you, but it's available.
Expenditures for Central Area TIF in the 2017 reporting period were $13,848,599 for an ending period fund balance of $1,229,458,000. Moving over to TIF District 2 for the FY17 reporting period. That fund started that reporting period with a balance of $8,451,516. Total deposits in that fund over the reporting period were $2,619,728, and total expenditures $2,472,638 for an ending fund balance of $8,598,606. Moving to,
Excuse me.
sure.
The numbers just kind of fly by, but
Yeah.
is there anything of significance we should know out of this, good or bad, or?
No, so,
What's the editorial comment?
yeah, so the annual report is really a recap of the audited financial statements from the TIF that we are then required to report to the state. So really I suppose the important component to this is the end of period fund balance, which basically just shows you the amounts retained in the TIF. If you go deeper into the reports themselves, you can get more granular into where the expenditures occurred in terms of projects and surplus and things like that.
The hot button item was always administrative costs. Were they still being heavily incurred in 17? Is that?
So in 2017, I believe the answer to that would be yes. In 2018, which is when we began to have that discussion in earnest, was when we made significant adjustments to that and reduced the TIF 1 administrative transfer to the general fund to $100,000 and the TIF 2 transfer to $60,000. So that significant change that was requested occurred in the 2018 reporting year.
So in 2017, it was still the very large number that we had come across.
Correct. So if you bear with me, I can find the exact figure.
Summary, Bill. That's reflected in the summary that we have.
I believe that figure for TIF 1 is in the $800,000 range.
That sounds,
That's right.
that
Yeah.
sounds correct.
I had total refunds and reimbursements were $898,000, but there's a couple other smaller components to that are outside the general fund transfer. And for TIF 2,
This is for 17.
this is
Right.
that number is 161,000.
Thank you.
So again, moving forward to 2018, there is a discrepancy in the fund balance if you compare the two reports side by side, but that's reflected if you go into our annual audit report. So if you look at the ending fund balance for 2017 and the 2017 report, and then you go to the beginning fund balance in the 2018 report, those numbers don't match up. But if you look at our audited financial statements, what they show is a prior period adjustment in the audit that accounts for that. So in 2018, the actual beginning fund balance for that reporting period is $863,818. Total deposits in the fund were $10,738,318, with expenditures of $228,822, with a end of period fund balance of $4,373,314. Again, this is the central area TIF. At this point, I'll make a note, and Bill might want to speak to this a little bit more, but as we were going through the compilation of the annual report for 2017 and looking at the audited financial numbers, something stuck out to me, and that was when we looked at the surplus payment that was made to the other taxing bodies. And in calculating the report, that number didn't look quite right to me, so we went back and looked at the surplus distribution and determined that that number was calculated improperly. So fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the surplus distribution that we made out of the central area TIF to the other taxing bodies was low. So probably next week or the following week, we will be making a supplemental surplus payment to each of the taxing bodies, and I'll walk through for you what that looks like. We had made a surplus distribution out of the central area TIF several months ago in an amount of $2,613,850. In recalculating that amount should have been $2,875,888. So in essence, between the various taxing bodies, there's an additional $262,000 that will be distributed in the coming weeks as a supplemental surplus distribution to correct that error that we found. Are there any questions about that before I move on?
Any questions here?
Looking at the audited financials for 2018 in TIF District 2, that district started with a fund balance at the beginning of the reporting period of $8,598,606. Funds saw deposits of $1,478,100 and total expenditures of $9,423,617. TIF 2's fund balance at the end of the reporting period stands at $653,089. So again, that is an extremely quick, high-level overview of the audited financials for both of the TIF districts for both 17 and 18 as reported to the comptroller's office. Those full reports, again, which are quite lengthy, are all posted on the city's website under our TIF pages for review, both by members and the public. But if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those.
Mr. Chairman, in the larger version and readable version, at least more readable version that I just handed out, the left numerical column is the audited FY 2018, so calendar year 2018 totals. And the next column to the right are some numbers I'll talk to you about as we talk about projects and how we're doing in the fund so far. Those are just pure projections, although the starting balance would be accurate, and where we'll end up is a projection based on completion of or progress on a number of projects.
Before we move to TIF 1 projects, are there questions regarding Ray's presentation?
I might just add, Mr. Chairman, and it's noted in the background, that we have been tracking for the first time on a detailed basis the time spent by those 4 or 5 persons that are involved significantly in our TIF program. And that would be myself and the assistant city manager and our principal planner, to a lesser extent administrative assistants who are still involved but not as actively involved. And the totals are there. I made a note in my background to you that as I see us tracking, as Ray mentioned, we had $100,000 that was in TIF 1 dedicated for, in 2019, for administrative offsets. We've spent $17,400 some dollars. We're going to suspend any more transfers because, in good faith, in January, the assistant finance director had just plugged into our software 100,000 divided by 12. That's 8,333 a month. So the first couple of months, that's what it was, and then we reduced that to 7,500. I'm just looking at the first 3 months of time, and I had made the executive decision to suspend any more transfers. And as we get into December and we start seeing numbers, we'll make whatever we think is a pretty accurate, either we'll pay back or we'll, wherever it will be. And I have a feeling it'll be probably transferring back from the general fund to the TIF Fund 1, some of what hasn't transferred.
Question?
Yes.
Surplus distribution, the numbers that you just shared with us don't quite match what's on this big sheet.
For 18, Bob?
Yes, or estimated for FY19.
And 19 is not complete because there is one more TIF 2 distribution. So there should be a discrepancy there. And then the number that Ray mentioned is not recorded here,
Okay.
because that's maybe what you're looking for, Bob.
Yeah, I was trying to
That's right,
tie
yes,
that to this
right.
sheet.
Right.
So that's not included on our sheet?
No, and that's just because this was something, when we're pulling together those reports, we noticed that. So, and I prepared this for a council meeting about a month ago. So this is a little dated compared to what he was giving.
I can touch on that a little bit. So if you actually look, we'll say 3/4 of the way down this large spreadsheet that Mr. Nicholas handed out, surplus distributions, in the FY18 column, it's surplus distribution TIF number 1, $3,219,784.
Yep.
That is the number that needs to be corrected. So that's the actual distribution that was paid out. And the reality is that number should have been about 3.5. So that discrepancy is what will be made up in this payment that's going to be made.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Nicholas, anything to add?
No.
Okay, we can move on to item F, discussion of TIF 1 projects.
I'll just be very brief. There's some detail in the background. Just quickly run through these. If you have any questions, stop me, or we can talk about it when I make my ones through. Egyptian Theater, we're still in the mud. You've been visiting us, you've noticed that probably a number of delays, principally to this point owing to utility conflicts and particularly the electrical. There were some planned power outages for the properties that abut Palmer Court over the weekend in the wee hours of the morning when they wouldn't make for problems, although it always makes for problems when you have that kind of power going off, coming on, swinging on again. And we have one more of those next week. Work will then hopefully fly along, and the objective is still to get the 4 walls and the roof and closed by the first heavy snowfall. I won't say the first snow.
When will that be?
Well, you never know. Hometown Restaurant, which received a forgivable loan with a couple other projects back in December, and it was later made into a permanent agreement in late March, is moving along, and hopefully that will be complete in the next couple of weeks. Plaza DeKalb, as you can see, we've got a couple floors framed and 2 more to go. The steel's up for those, and there has been some interruption of traffic on Second owing to the need to have a semi pull up and they offload trusses and then get traffic moving. There are usually 15 to 20 minute interruptions. They've really been working hard to keep that open, but it can't be 100% successful. They've had a crane sitting there for a better part of a month, so they're in earnest when they say they want to get past that point. The former Mooney property, we're going to be going to the Planning and Zoning Commission in the first meeting in August, and then from there to the council probably at the second meeting in August with the proposal for a permanent development agreement for that. At this point, it looks like all of the necessary documents will be ready by that point, and if they're not, it'll be the first meeting in September. Mr. Pappas is moving things along very quickly, and got a number of engineers and his architect working hard on that. The house, interesting project proposed there. You've seen a little bit of coverage on that, a lot of coverage, thanks to Kelsey and others. And we're still working with them to see if we can come to some conceptual agreement on a TIF funded subsidy, and I'm still optimistic we can get there. Safe Passage, I only mentioned them today because I think at the last ERB there was a list of some potential projects. That was one of them. This topic will come back to the council at an August meeting, probably the second August meeting. And then Architectural Improvement Program, we're just about empty in that particular line item. We've got $1,500 left, and there's probably an awning claim to that between now and the end of the year, and we'll see how that goes. But I think on the whole, pretty successful. Some probably the most significant downtown project is at the law firm of Charlie and Matt Brown at 3rd and Lincoln, and that's going to be nice. They started yesterday. We had quite a lot of white dust right over the top of that. I could see they were doing some saw cutting, some masonry saw cutting to get going on the mason repairs. That's all I have. Unless there are questions, happy to answer any.
Do we have any further questions for Mr. Nicholas? Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Item G, recent council action regarding TIF 1 increment in 2022.
Thank you. As you know, we discussed this at the last meeting and discussed it at some earlier meetings in January and February, and I'm happy to report that the council, mayor and council approved what we've been discussing here, and the consensus of the JRB, which was to reduce the life of TIF 1 instead of 35 years to 34 years. And I thought it would be useful to you and people like Pete to know what this means specifically in the way of when the last collections happen and when the last remittal happens. And so I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but some of it is that based on that council action back in June, The last taxes levy will be in 2020, payable in 2021, and the end date will be 12/31/2021. So from the city's standpoint, and projects and things that are committed through TIF 1, and we were talking about this at the Airport Advisory Committee the other night, and Gary serves on that, we need to be in earnest in working to make things happen. We'll keep you informed as we go along.
I'd just say I'm appreciative of the city council taking this formal action. I think it was a very nice compromise on
Yeah.
moving forward, and it should simplify things in the future, so thank you.
And you, thank you, and you had, you were part of that suggestion, Gary, and I appreciate that, too. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
The last item that we have on the agenda is next meeting, October 25th, 2019. Hopefully, we can, works for everybody. And we can have a quorum. I haven't looked at that date. We look good?
Yep.
Amy?
You be in the field, Bob? No.
I've got a conference room, we could meet there. Go on a combine.
Can we televise there?
We have the internet, so if you figure out how to live stream on Facebook, I've heard of that.
I'm sure you can. Somebody can figure it out. All right, we have confirmation for our meeting, next meeting, October 25th, 2019. With that, we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Do we have a second? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Thank you.